And now, let's join Ace Broadcaster Mamode Akugha as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I am Mamode Akugha. It is not in doubt that the quest for equity and justice in the Niger Delta had assumed prominence in national political discourse long before Nigeria gained her independence from British colonial rule in October 1960. Recall that the outcome of the Willings Commission report of 1948 was a recommendation that designated the entire region as an endangered area in need of special attention. Following the Willings Commission report, in the post-independence era have been several other reports and interventions to provide succor for the beleaguered Niger Delta communities. In his Independence Day national broadcast, President Buhari last week made a public declaration of the interventions and intention of his government for the Niger Delta, 70 clear years after the Willings report was submitted to the British colonial authorities. In tonight's edition of the program, we will bring you some reactions to President Muhammadu Buhari's account of stewardship to the Niger Deltans as contained in his recent national broadcast. Our second and last issue on the program is centered on agitations for a restructured federation which appear to be gaining momentum in the build-up to the 2019 general elections. Inside the Niger Delta, we'll be back in just a moment.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Welcome back. On Monday, 1st of October 2018, Nigeria turned 58. As usual, the government and people of Africa's most populous country rolled out the drums to celebrate Nigeria's liberation from British colonial rule on October 1st, 1960. Traditionally, it was an auspicious occasion for President Muhammadu Buhari, the nation's #1 citizen, to give account of his stewardship and reel out plans for good governance in the country. In paragraph 8 of his Independence Day broadcast, President Muhammadu Buhari made reference to his government's efforts at fixing and rebuilding the battered Niger Delta region.
Efforts are on course in the Niger Delta to clean up polluted lands, restore hopes of the youth in the region, and re-establish livelihoods and strengthen their capacity to guarantee for themselves and for our country a brighter future.
In spite of Mr. President's seeming positive self-assessment of his stewardship in the Niger Delta since he assumed office over 3 years ago, an avalanche of reactions trailed his submission. Former president of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MOSOP, Mr. Ledom Mite, is one of those who reacted to President Buhari's intervention in the Niger Delta region.
That statement looks like someone just inserted it, let it be that we have said something about Niger Delta. I say this because we have had, over a year ago, I was in a delegation that met him as leaders of the Niger Delta, and we presented a 16-point agenda, none of which had been addressed. Now, we've been put into a situation where there is clearly evidence that it is not of interest to this administration. Let me give you an example. What do? The East-West Road has been there for several years. 1 kilometer has barely not been added since this government came in. The budgetary allocation for the past 3 years to the East-West Road is not total, might not be more than 10 billion for the 3 years. And the releases are far less than that. So nothing has been done about that. How do you say that someone is serious about your region when you now hear that, okay, the East-West Road, because election is coming, we are going to seek loan from China to build the East-West Road. Now, but we do not need to seek loan. We need to take money from oil in the Niger Delta to build Lagos-Ibadan Road, Kaduna Road, Maiduguri Express Road, refinery in Katsina. All those ones we don't need loan from China. But the ones for the Niger Delta, we need to seek loan so that we are able to attend to those areas.
In his Independence Day broadcast, President Buhari had indicated his government's resolve to restore hopes of youths in the region by strengthening their capacity for self-reliance. The Presidential Amnesty Program, which was introduced by the government of late President Umaru Yar'Adua, remains a major channel to address the needs of many misguided and disgruntled youths in the Niger Delta. But for the former chairman of the Presidential Technical Committee on the Niger Delta, Ledom Mite, Mosop is not comfortable with the implementation of the program, which it describes as anything but desirable.
Unfortunately, they picked only aspects of that recommendation and ran with it to just show that we have made some success. But in terms of what the whole DDR component was, it has not been implemented in terms with what we made the recommendations. And so you find a situation that it's an open-end appeasement mechanism, that no one has an end. When is it going to end? What is the state of even what you call the amnesty? Where are all those people who have been, beneficiaries of the amnesty? Where are they today? How are they integrated into society? What is the impact of what we have done? So each day it is an open-end thing by which money is there. And unfortunately, again, we have not only created a culture that people can earn money without doing any work. And so this sort of situation does not help matters. When we made our recommendation, we said that you capture them, not only those who you call the militants, but also youths. Because there are also some people who have the same grievance, but they did not carry guns. And you don't do it in a way that you are only favoring one group. And we thought you can create 2,000 jobs in each local government. And we came out with what we thought were the implementation mechanism of some of this. No one has asked us about what should we do in those sort of situations. So you now find a situation that you just dash money to some people. You dispense cash to some people. It's not tied to any productive venture. And because of that, it is an open-ended situation, as if the whole aspect of amnesty was just supposed to be some appeasement mechanism. And as I said, it creates also a pull factor that the next group of young people who were not caught up in that now feels that, hey, the only way you can be taken care of is to also arm yourself and become relevant. And then you now say, oh, we also want to be part of it. You say, no, amnesty have closed. So you now find a continuing struggle for who can show a superior power. And that is quite dangerous for a society like us.
In their reaction, other Niger Deltans are demanding a better deal from the government of President Muhammadu Buhari in addressing the Niger Delta question.
With all due respect to Mr. President, I think that his take on the Niger Delta borders on what I would describe as wandering generalities. Is the speech, particularly with respect to the Niger Delta, is amorphous and delivers nothing specific to the Niger Delta people. It's amazing that at this point in time in our development, our leaders can still talk about the Niger Delta issue from the point of view of pontification. We should go beyond pontificating, general statements and all of that, and begin to talk about specific plan for developing the region. This is an issue that we've been on for a very long time. Look at the Ogoni cleanup. 2 years, over 2 years after the flag off. Nothing has happened on site. And it's not only Ogoni land that is polluted. I come from Oba Ibema and Doni local government. We produce oil. And majority of our lands are also polluted. Nobody has visited site. Nobody has done anything. What we need in the Niger Delta is not general statements with political intention, calming our nerves so that we can be gulled into voting again. The Niger Delta man, both the one on the street and the one anywhere, knows that all we need is massive infrastructural development. You don't need a seminar to do that. You don't need a committee to do that. The funds are there. The engineers are there. Build roads for us. Give us hospitals. Deliver things that will give us level, playing ground, to enable us, involve ourselves in economic activities.
As regards Niger Delta, that feeds the nation, is just a problem for this nation, and that is what we are all suffering. Because when we see the truth and we don't speak it, and when we know the right thing and we don't do it, it becomes a sickness to the entire body. Niger Delta region is part of this country. It's not different from the rest of this country. Niger Delta region is it that presently taking care of the entire nation. But little or no attention is paid to it. I'm talking because I support Buhari, I work with him. But not sufficiently, not enough is said about this nation. You see, it's quite an affront to me. And I feel that the right thing should be done. Buhari knows the right thing. He should do it. He's a soldier, he's a nationalist. He's not just a politician. And that's why I work with him. And being a soldier who is a national person, he knows the right thing to do. What he has so presented to us does not give me any hope. And I think he was talking in general terms. When he comes properly to the nitty-gritty of the Niger Delta, I think he will talk better. Right now, you know what is happening in the northeast, how it is being taken care of? Why? What about the Niger Delta that is feeding the nation? Can't it be taken care of that way? Go to my village. I cannot go there. I cannot drive my car to that place. And these are people that is producing the wealth that makes this nation. We should face the facts. We have not started anything for the Niger Delta.
Although President Buhari in his speech did not mention Ogoniland while referring to his government efforts at cleaning up polluted sites in the Niger Delta, it is a known fact that the Ogoni cleanup exercise is the only ongoing environmental remediation project in the region. Recall that during his electioneering campaign in Ogoniland, Mr. President had promised to implement the UNEP report, which his predecessor in office, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, failed to do. Under President Buhari's administration, governance structures have been put in place to facilitate the environmental remediation of polluted sites in Ogoniland through the instrumentality of the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP. Most of the impacted communities and environmental rights activists in the region, however, allege that the cleanup process has been tardy and painfully slow. One of such groups is the Ogoni Youth Federation, OYF, which last week dragged HYPREP to a federal high court in Port Harcourt for allegedly failing to give account of its appropriation of the sum of $10 million initial takeoff grant released by Shell Petroleum Development Company, which is accused of being responsible for the environmental devastation of Ogoniland. The court had entertained the suit but failed to give an adjourned date as the plaintiffs failed to put the defendants on notice.
They made a letter pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act seeking HYPREP, being a body that is saddled with the responsibility of conducting the Ogoni cleanup, to give them certain information pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act. And the body, after tossing them about, failed to give them the requisite information as provided by law. And then, pursuant to the relevant provision of the Freedom of Information Act, they have come to court to file an organization asking the court to give an order mandating them to perform their statutory duties. So, and the law, the Federal High Court rules provides that before you can bring an action for judicial review, you must have to obtain the leave of the court before you can file organization summons. So, based on the provision of the law, we have filed a motion ex parte asking the court to grant us leave to serve the original process on the defendants. The Honorable Court, in its wisdom, has granted the application as period. And so, what we have to do now is to serve them the original summons. so that they can come to court and state the reason why they have not complied with the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act. The court understood the matter before it, and the court in its wisdom did not hesitate. So all the court asked us was, are you ready to move your application? And I would say yes. And I wanted to even explain to the court the exigencies of the matter, but the court had read the files and the court was impressed with what has happened, and the court granted the motion ex parte. As at now, the court has not really given us a date. What is to happen is that the court has asked us to serve the original summons on the parties and bring the proof of service to the court file. When the proof of service is in the court file, then the court in its wisdom will now give us date.
We came to court as youths of Ogoni to demand for accountability. We came to court to demand for transparency in lieu to the Ogoni cleanup exercise, because there has been a lot of secrecy going on with the hydrocarbon pollution remediation projects and the Federal Ministry of Environment in respect to the Ogoni cleanup. We wrote to them in pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, demanding information on the management, administration, and disbursement of the $10 million initially earmarked for the cleanup exercise of Ogoni land. As we all recall, the Ogoni land is polluted to the extent that the United Nations says our people are drinking water contaminated with benzene, a known carcinogen, and hydrocarbon, a petroleum substance, which has shortened the lifespan of our people. And an agency was set up to see how they could clean up the land. The agency, rather than following this issue and tackling it head on, they are busy doing rhetorics, and our people are dying, and there's a limit to human endurance. We are saying they should go beyond rhetorics and clean our land. And as well, they should account for monies given them in respect to Ogoni cleanup. Ogoni cleanup money is for the whole Ogoni people and the Ogoni environment. It's not for any individual. I will not stand here and fold our arms and allow any individual or agency mismanage Ogoni fund. That is our demand, and that is why we are in court. We are in court because we are peaceful people. We are peaceful youth. We will not carry arms. That is why we are here to seek judicial review, so as to get and press home our demand for accountability and a well-clean Ogoni environment. Because as it stands today, we don't even know the pattern, the methodology that high preps seek to employ in cleaning the Ogoni land. They are all doing this whole thing in secrecy. And as a petroleum engineer, there should be a framework of what they are doing so that people can checkmate it and be a watchdog to what they are doing, so that the right thing will be done. We will also come against any mushroom companies that has not cleaned up before in any part of this country to come and clean Ogoni land. The Gulf of Mexico was polluted, and we have records of companies that clean the Gulf of Mexico and other impacted sites in this world. So we should call such companies to come and remediate Ogoni land. Enough of the hanky-panky business. We will not allow anything injustice to be meted on the Ogoni people again, because we've suffered a lot. We've lost generations of our people, and at this time the youth are rising up to call on our elders to not do anything that will make interpretations that will brand them as agents of divide and rule. The right thing should be done, and that is the stake of the Ogoni youth. And we have confidence in the judiciary that will have justice at the end of the day.
After 3.5 years of the very slow implementation of the Ogoni cleanup exercise, those who refer to it as a political pawn used for the purpose of winning the votes of the Ogoni people may just appear right if we now begin to see and witness an increased pace of activity between now and February 2019, when the nation will vote once again to elect its leaders for another 4-year term. Well, away from the Ogoni cleanup project, we bring you a special report on the new twist to the clamor for restructuring in the Niger Delta as the 2019 elections inch closer. Don't go away.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Despite mounting opposition to the agenda from several political fronts, advocates of a restructured federation in the Niger Delta appear unruffled as they continue to press harder in their demand for sweeping constitutional reforms along the lines of true federalism. To this end, the Ijaw Youth Council, an umbrella body of youths in the Ijaw Nation, recently organized a rally in Port Harcourt, the River State capital.
Niger Delta, The Owelami Roland-led Ijaw Youth Council IYC marches through the city of Port Harcourt, chanting slogans in solidarity with other groups, pushing for a balanced federation for the country. The group's destination is the River State Government House.
I owe no apologies to those who are against the restructuring of this country. If Nigeria must move forward, this country must be restructured. For me, while I'm alive, and God gives me the strength and the wisdom, I will continue to fight for the restructuring of this country.
In their submission, members of the IYC maintain that it will take a restructured federation to address Nigeria's national question as well as provide lasting solutions to other socio-economic problems confronting the country.
We as the Ijaws are saying that we want restructuring. Yeah, that's the only way we can have our system, our economic system working. That's the only way we can have power generation, effectively and efficiently, distributed to every Nigerian. That's the only way we can have our airports working. That's the only way we can have our transport system working. And every federating unit will come, put in their thoughts and ideas. Governors will not go and queue up in Abuja anymore for 30 days and take allocation and come and spend without thinking investment. So to us, restructuring is just the solution. And that's the language we want to hear. In the forthcoming election in 2019, we want to see everybody talk about restructuring and how we're going to have a better Nigeria.
For Ijaw people, for the Niger Delta people, the election in 2019 is a referendum. That is to say that we will identify genuine people who believe in restructuring this country. There are very, very many politicians who are playing politics with the slogan restructuring today. We know them. We know the ones that are serious. We know the ones that are not serious. The Ijaw Nation, the Niger Delta people will identify the people who are passionate about restructuring Nigeria.
In the vanguard for a restructured federation are Nigerians from various ethnic and political backgrounds. Their grounds is with the making of the 1999 Constitution, which proclaims a federal republic in principle, but operates a pseudo-federal state in reality. Since the country's transition to a democratic regime in 1999, advocates of a restructured federation have been consistent in their demand for devolution of more legislative functions from an omnibus center to the redundant and powerless federating units for greater efficiency in the system. But all such agitations appear to have come against a brick wall. In July last year, the clamor for a restructured federation suffered a huge setback when the National Assembly rejected the Constitution Alteration Bill No. 3 of 2017, which sought to move certain items from the exclusive list to the concurrent list to give more legislative powers to the states.
And no blackmail, no intimidation should sway us to abandon this noble cause. Our nation is crying for justice. Our nation is crying for freedom. Our nation is crying for prosperity. Our nation is crying for unity. Unity that is sustainable. Unity that is founded on justice. Let us engage more and urge them to be just and remind them that no nation, however strong its military might, like we have seen with USSR of old, can be sustained if its unity and internal dynamics are not founded on what is right, what is just, and what is proper, and what is sustainable.
Although President Muhammadu Buhari had equally disowned the protagonists of a restructured federation in his 2018 New Year Day national broadcast, his party, the All Progressives Congress, had few weeks later, in the month of February, set up a high-level committee to study the motives behind agitations for restructuring and make necessary recommendations. In its final report, the 10-man committee led by Kaduna State Governor Malam Nasiru El-Rufai recognized an urgent need to dispense with the pseudo-federalist structure currently in practice. In clear terms, the committee made recommendations for the transfer of legislative functions from the exclusive list to the concurrent list in matters pertaining to registration of business, labor, ownership and control of mines and minerals, including oil fields, geological surveys and natural gas, police, prisons, public holidays and stamp duties. 8 months after the submission of the report of the APC panel on restructuring, Not a few Nigerians may have become skeptical about government's willingness to operate the principles of true federalism for the good governance of the country. The champions of true federalism in the country include leaders in the Niger Delta who are of the view that the current structure is not only detrimental to national cohesion and economic progress, but is also deliberately skewed against the survival of Nigeria's oil-rich region that is plagued by political instability, widespread poverty, environmental degradation, and underdevelopment.
For us from this region, we have lots and lots and lots of reasons to restructure. If it were in the night, if you looked up, you would have seen the gas flare. You will see light in the skies. It's not heavenly party. It is flaring of gas. Our people are going blind because of it, yet the penalty that is paid is shared equally in this country. That is injustice. A few kilometers from here is Ogoni land. We talked about cleanup. Yes, it was flagged up, but that was the end of it. There are so many reasons why over the years the people of the Niger Delta have been asking for justice. Isaac Adakaboro died because of asking for justice. Ken Sarawiwe died because of asking for justice. Odi was leveled because of asking for justice. We are not lunatics. We want justice.
Despite scathing criticisms trailing the demand for a restructured federation, its advocates insist that reorganizing the political and economic structures of the Nigerian state is an idea ripe for implementation in the collective interests of the country and its citizens.
And with that special report, we bring the program to a close. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region will be back same time on this station next week. On behalf of the production crew, I am Mamode Akugha, thanking you for staying tuned. Goodbye for now.